My name is Llew Edwards. I've had a wonderful life. What had happened in 1982, Bob Hawke announced that Australia would host a World Expo, and he called it World Expo 88, and it's going to be held somewhere in Australia. He put down two requirements: one, that the weather would be good even though it was going to be in winter. So he thought that Queensland might be the best site on that regard. And then secondly, he wondered who would take it over and not get bogged down with labour problems, the strikes and so forth. And I promised him I would come to an agreement with the trade union movement before we started doing one thing. So they were the major bases on which we could go ahead and get an expo that would open on the 30th of April 1988. My role was Chairman and Chief Executive, and therefore I was responsible to 8 people who had each of the divisions, and they answered to me. And I also was responsible for getting countries to come and be at the expo site. So my job was really putting it all together, making sure it was on time, and not one day of a strike. We discussed it with the trade union movement, and we indicated that we could not afford to have any obstruction. So we did a deal, and we offered a few of the senior people that we would give them free tickets to come in because they were doing the job. Any problem, it would be done in my office with just the 3 of us, and that's how it all worked out so well. We looked firstly for a site where we could have this expo, and then we looked out of the window from the government's building, and there was Expo for us in the making, where we could build temporarily and then take it all down afterwards, and we would be able to have up to 20 million people pass through the gates in that time. It's called South Bank now. It used to be called South Brisbane. To get it to be identified on its own rights, it was named by us as South Bank, and the name is still there. When we took over the site, it was full of broken down buildings, a lot of storage areas. Only about 5 people lived on the site. So we were able to then do a deal with all the owners, and nobody took us to court, and we obviously satisfied them. And then we cleaned the site up to have a World Expo that everybody could enjoy. There was a lot of interest in art because we knew that would be one of the successes that could come out of Expo. So it was all part of an effort to get things done, to might be different to what we have normally in the street, and we loved every day saluting them, as was a bit of a culture as we walked past. We also looked at mainly as a way by which aeroplanes wouldn't go over our lovely place, and so on the top we put the highest and brightest bulb that we could, seen by all pilots as they flew in and out of Brisbane and nearby. It was extremely successful. We made a general feeling that we would get round about 6 million through the gates on 184 days. But we finished up 3 times that number, and we had 18,350,000 people went through the gates. Our largest number was at close to 450,000 one day, and nobody could move on the site. They all loved Expo, and we're very proud that it happened in our city, in our state and in our nation. There is no doubt in my mind and in the minds of many, many people that World Expo 88 changed the attitude of Brisbane. We all appreciated the river more than we'd ever done before, and the Expo was bordered right the way down by Brisbane River. And we also brought ferries into the Expo site, which hadn't been done before, and so suddenly the river became a big part for transporting people to the Expo. On the closing, I had to do two things. One, we had to get about 100,000 people off the site at 10 p.m. That was very difficult. We got them all off by 11 o'clock, and then we had our party where all the staff and some associates were allowed to have a lovely time, which went on until about 4 o'clock in the morning. We think Expo did a lot for Queensland and Australia. They suddenly realised that Queenslanders could now do anything, and it was therefore a great base to start looking for projects that they could bring into the city or into the state. And it was a starting case for reviving what we did in Queensland, what we hadn't been doing. We could now go ahead, and I think it's been a great advance that occurred since 1988. I think if I have a favourite memory, it was opening day, where lining up at 7 o'clock in the morning, people were there. So I walked down to say good day to them and welcome. Secondly, it was the way in which people could move around and didn't mind standing outside for an hour and a half or 2 hours, talking to the world, as it were. And the final thing was that to this day I still get people who ring me and say, I've lost my season pass, can I have another one? And I say, it's no use to you, so I can't get it for you. But it means that people really loved Expo, and they feel they were part of it, and all of Queensland still loves the memories.